Yep, we're doing this. For the first time in what seems like forever, there was a viable option for counter-programming at the Super Bowl halftime show that had a realistic chance of taking some viewers away from the big game. After the selection of Bad Bunny for the Super Bowl 60 halftime show polarized a lot of people and drew mixed reactions, especially seeing as Bad Bunny's first language is not English, his hit songs are in Spanish, and the NFL tried to appeal to a global audience instead of the 98% of the audience that watched the Super Bowl in English last year. Turning Point USA sensed an opportunity, especially in the week of the assassination of its founder, Charlie Kirk. What if we threw our own halftime show? Bad Bunny pushes the envelope too much, so we're going to promote Christian values and family values and make the show age-appropriate. Bad Bunny speaks in Spanish, and a lot of people who watch the NFL do not understand the language. So we're going to do a halftime show with just English-speaking singers and songs that you've heard before. If the NFL isn't going to appeal to its core audience, we'll take the core audience away from NBC and bring it to our company. And I want to make something extremely clear. I want counter-programming at the Super Bowl halftime show. Even if I'll never watch the counter-programming live, I want it because it encourages the NFL to stay on their toes. We see what exclusive licenses can do. If you played Madden in the days where 2K also had the rights to football games versus playing Madden now, you know what I'm talking about. If there's no competition, you can rest on your laurels. You don't need to necessarily go all out and make things interesting because people are going to watch anyways, and you'll have a monopoly on that time slot. Competition encourages creativity, and competition is good for the consumer. Heck, the Super Bowl halftime show would not be what it is today if it wasn't for counter-programming. At halftime of Super Bowl 26, Fox decided to air a live episode of their comedy series in living color, taking away from an absolutely terrible Winter Magic-themed halftime show that included kids rapping about how Frosty the Snowman was a gangster. I am not making that up. It lured 20 million people away from CBS, the network broadcasting the game, over to Fox. And enough people switched, and in some cases, because the game was so bad and it was out of hand by that point, those people never switched back. And it forced the NFL to take action and to quit treating the halftime show as a joke and this cheesy affair designed to fill the field and nothing more, and instead, get big-name acts and big-time pop stars, which is how we got Michael Jackson the following year at Super Bowl 27. So I welcome counter-programming at the Super Bowl halftime show all the way. However, the problem if you're going to counter-program the halftime show of the Super Bowl is that the show has to be, well, you know, good. And that's a problem for Turning Point because there was one small problem, and that's the fact that this show absolutely sucked. I am not kidding when I say that this halftime show was terrible and fundamentally missed the point of everything that a halftime show should be. The Turning Point halftime show got just about everything wrong, to the point where it might have actually been entertaining to watch at times in the way that Tommy Wiseau's The Room is, or the magic trick at the Super Bowl 23 halftime show with Elvis Presto was, because it was so bad that it was good. Before I explain just how bad this show was, make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, hype up that video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel, because we post every single day on here about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL. So if you like that sort of stuff, then this is definitely the place for you. Thanks in advance for liking and subscribing, and for hyping up the video, and for helping us grow this community. And with that in mind, let's talk about the Kid Rock halftime show that did anything but rock. For starters, this is how the show opened up.
Welcome to the Turning Point USA All-American Halftime Show. And this one's for you, Charlie.
So this entire halftime show was dedicated to Charlie Kirk and was what he would have wanted. The goal with the show is that if he was alive today, he would have been entertained by this. Now, I don't know Charlie Kirk personally. I've never met the guy. But I do know what Charlie Kirk liked in a halftime show, because we have tweets from the past where he explicitly said which halftime shows he liked and which ones he didn't like. The two halftime shows that Kirk really seemed to like were the Super Bowl 48 halftime show, headlined by Bruno Mars and featuring an appearance from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and the Super Bowl 50 halftime show, headlined by Coldplay and featuring appearances from Bruno Mars and Beyonce. Immediately, you can see the problem with framing this as the halftime show that Charlie wanted and calling it the All-American Halftime Show, because there is quite literally zero overlap between the artists that Charlie liked for the halftime show and the artists at this Turning Point halftime show. The circle of people that like Brantley Gilbert and the circle of people that like Beyonce are two separate circles. The circle of people that will bump out to Kid Rock's latest album and then immediately bump out to Beyonce's Formation does not exist. Plus, Kirk liked the halftime show at Super Bowl 50, and that featured Coldplay, who, last time I checked, is not an American band. In fact, they're from the country that we tried to free ourselves from. So good job, Turning Point. You built the show around what a dead man would have wanted, and you couldn't even get that right. But questionable theming aside, I could excuse that if the show was, actually good. However, the problem with this show is that it lasted 35 minutes from the time the first speech was made to the final note that Kid Rock played. That's a problem because while the halftime show at the Super Bowl is long, it's not that long. The Super Bowl halftime break is, give or take, 30 minutes long, with the actual show being somewhere in the ballpark of 14 minutes. You've got roughly 7 minutes to set everything up, less time than that to take everything down, and then the players go on the field and warm up a little bit. But while it's long, it's not 35 minutes long. And this meant that if you flipped over from NBC to Turning Point's channel at the exact same time that halftime started, and then flipped back at the exact time the Turning Point show ended, you missed part of the game. And I got confirmation from people on Twitter that they missed part of the game because they didn't realize this show ran long. The number one rule of counter-programming the halftime show should go without saying, but apparently, Turning Point had never seen a halftime show before, so I need to say it. You make sure your program is done by the time the game starts back up again. You don't bleed into the actual game. You sold your halftime show as a lie. It's no longer a halftime show if it goes into the third quarter. And seeing as most people go to a bar to watch the game and not the halftime show, good luck getting bars to flip to your show if you do this again, knowing that there's a chance that they miss a portion of the game. Good luck getting people to watch your show next year, knowing that you can't even get the timing down properly. When In Living Color did their counter-programming back in 1992, they had a clock to let you know exactly when the Super Bowl was starting back up again. Not only did Turning Point not have that at any point in the show, but they went over. And maybe you could excuse this if there were some technical difficulties or something unexpected came up that caused the show to run longer than it should have. But this wasn't even done live. This was very clearly pre-recorded before the Super Bowl took place. If you don't believe me or the posts about that online, see for yourself and try to think logically and critically about how this sequence from Brantley Gilbert could have been pulled off if it was live.
And I wrote this next song with a good friend of mine by the name of Colt Ford.
There's not even the illusion that this was a live performance. Santa Claus is more believable. There is no way that in the span of 6 seconds, Brantley Gilbert goes from having no guitar on himself to having a guitar on himself while the band disappears. The crowd goes from cheering like crazy to dead silent, and Gilbert is mid-sentence. And things like this happen quite a few times throughout the broadcast where you knew it wasn't live. Take a look at this transition from the end of Lee Bryce's set to the introduction for Kid Rock, and tell me how something like this is even possible if this was truly live.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our homie, Kid Rock.
There's only one entrance to the stage, and that's from the wings. So in a matter of 5 seconds, you would need 4 people to come from the wings and set Olympic records for sprint speed to then reach the end of the stage, get in position, and begin speaking. It was clear that this wasn't live, which makes it even worse, because this means you could have fixed everything that was wrong and condensed the show if it went over time. And you decided not to do that. You organized a pre-recorded halftime show, had time to go over everything, and couldn't even count to 30 properly. The editing on this show, on so many levels, was atrocious, especially when it got to the headliner in Kid Rock, which, by the way, I'm sure Charlie would have loved, seeing as he tweeted about how the American flag should be respected. And literally the very first part of the US Code with respect to the flag says, and I quote, "No disrespect should be shown to the flag of the United States of America. The flag should not be dipped to any person or thing. The flag should never be used as wearing apparel, bedding, or drapery. The flag should never be used in such a manner as to permit it to be easily torn, soiled, or damaged in any way." Charlie Kirk seemed pretty passionate about making sure you respected the flag. I bring that up because literally at the Super Bowl 38 halftime show, your headliner, Kid Rock, did this. So good job, guys. You're really honoring Charlie Kirk's legacy by giving him the halftime show he would have wanted. This is like someone decorating my coffin with Tennessee Titans decals and saying that this is what I would have wanted. But getting back to Kid Rock's actual performance, I'm just gonna let it speak for itself. This goes on throughout the entire performance, by the way. It means either one of two things, or possibly both. Number one, Kid Rock is the world's worst lip syncer, with the performance at the Thanksgiving Day parade being more believable in this. Or number two, the audio and vocals were completely out of sync, despite the fact that this was pre-recorded. That takes legitimate skill to have the video and audio out of sync. I use freaking iMovie for all of my videos, a free product built into every Mac computer, and I never had a problem with that. How does an organization like Turning Point look at this and review the footage and think, yep, this looks good? I honestly don't know what's worse. Kid Rock lip syncing? Or he was singing live and it just looked like he was lip syncing because no one did any quality control at Turning Point. But going back to what Charlie Kirk would have wanted, remember, he liked the halftime show at Super Bowl 48 and Super Bowl 50. Those two shows had good pacing. No artist played the entirety of any of their songs. They knew that with a limited time available at your disposal, you play a verse and a chorus, maybe the ending, and keep it moving. The energy was high the entire time. Bruno Mars was his favorite halftime show, and it started off with Bruno killing it on the drums, then dancing non-stop, including a great James Brown tribute during Runaway Baby, then jumping up and down like a madman when the Red Hot Chili Peppers came on. You could argue that maybe it slowed down at the end with a ballad, but even that was at a faster tempo than usual, and that's his biggest song, and arguably one of the biggest songs of all time, so the energy was high the entire time. Even at Super Bowl 50, that show was highlighted by the medley between Uptown Funk and Formation, two up-tempo songs with lots of choreography attached to it. So knowing what Charlie would have wanted, what if I said that the show had artists playing the entirety of their song? What if I said that the show had artists lip-syncing, which neither Beyonce, nor Coldplay, nor Bruno Mars, nor the Red Hot Chili Peppers did at their shows? What if I said that the show had people giving speeches?
When I wrote this next song with a good friend of mine by the name of Colt Ford, and Jason Aldean changed our life and put it on country radio.
Well, Charlie, he gave people microphones so they could say what was on their mind. This is what's on mine.
You know, I awoke one Sunday morning all alone with this song stuck in my head. And in that moment, something or someone spoke to me. They said there was still a verse that needed to be written for this song, and to get up and write it down.
Yep, that's why Charlie loved the halftime show at the Super Bowl. What if I said that the show ended with a 7-minute violin ballad where the violinist and cello were playing made-up notes that don't match their movement at all? Yep, that's why Charlie loved the halftime show at Super Bowl 48. He loved when Bruno Mars busted out the violin and played a concerto. The pacing at this show absolutely sucked. And if that wasn't bad enough, the show was a celebration of faith, family, and freedom. In other words, it was a show that you could watch with the whole family. You didn't have to worry about the NFL sneaking in a message, or worry about dancers twerking and wearing risque clothing. You could flip over to Turning Point at halftime and watch a family-appropriate show. Yet, there were multiple instances of artists cursing during songs. During Kid Rock's opening number, he literally says the word bastards, which is a curse and is against the 10 Commandments. Take a listen and see if this seems family appropriate. I know some are arguing that this was a metaphor and that Kid Rock was inappropriate before and then found God and then cleaned up his act, and his set showed the transformation of the old Kid Rock to the new Kid Rock. But surely there was a better way to go about it than cursing. Heck, Dirt Road Anthem was played earlier in the set, and the lyrics said by Brantley Gilbert explicitly mention cursing and punching people if they talk too much. And Gabby Barnett has one song, and in that song, she talks about how she's not turning the other cheek, and how she hopes that a girl cheats on you. Yep, those are family values, all right. Fun for the whole family. You set out to create a halftime show that was more appropriate for the family than the NFL, and somehow you failed at that. This is definitely promoting faith and the Word of God. Songs about cursing, songs about holding a vengeance and not forgiving your neighbor, songs about cheating. The Kendrick Lamar halftime show, where he straight up calls Drake a pedophile on stage, was more family friendly than this show. And that's the insane part about the Turning Point halftime show. I don't get what it was trying to accomplish. It had a mission, and it failed miserably. Say what you want about the Bad Bunny halftime show, whether you liked it or not, but his mission with the show was that you didn't need to know English. All you needed to know was how to dance. I'd say he succeeded with that, because there was a lot of dancing and up-tempo music and people having a good time. Even if it's not your cup of tea necessarily, it accomplished his mission. The Turning Point halftime show failed the first objective of a halftime show, which is to just be on for halftime. You're no longer a halftime show if you're bleeding into the game. It failed in honoring Charlie Kirk's legacy and what he wanted, because he made it explicitly clear during his time on Earth what he wanted in a halftime show. And this was not that. It failed in promoting family values because of the subject matter of the songs. And the fact that it was pre-taped and all these problems could have been fixed and they weren't? This show is legitimately insane. I don't know who this halftime show was for. Bad Bunny's halftime show was designed for a specific target audience. It might not be you and me, but it was designed for a specific target audience. This halftime show was designed for no one. This seemed like it was thrown together at the last minute by people who had never seen the Super Bowl halftime show before. Between the editing errors, the contradictions, the awful lip-syncing, the speeches and ballads that broke up the flow of the show, and everything in between, at times, this show was legitimately so bad that it was good. I was alternating the entire time between thinking this is a slog to get through to laughing my butt off. And if that was the mission, then okay, mission accomplished. But I'm guessing that was not the mission at all. And like I said earlier, I want to make something extremely clear. I have no problem with creating another halftime show and creating counter-programming to keep the NFL on its toes. And seeing as entertainment is subjective, if you like this show, great, more power to you. But this was not the way to go about it. Because if the point of the Charlie Kirk Memorial Turning Point halftime show was to fight for the gospel and honor his name, well, you were the Will Campbell of halftime shows. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.